Guys, welcome to Volleyball's channel. In this video, we are going to start with active and passive voice. So I've divided this chapter into two parts. It's a bit lengthy, but not very difficult. Let's try and understand what is voice, what is active voice, what is passive voice, and what are the rules we follow to convert active into passive voice, right? So this is a new grammar chapter. Let's begin. Okay. So when I talk about voice in grammar, it is a form of a verb, right? It indicates the relation between subject and object. In simple terms, I would like to understand that verb voice basically in grammar is used to make us understand or to uh, yeah to help us know voice in grammar in simple terms means it describes whether a verb is active or passive. So when we are given a sentence, there is a subject who is doing the action. Yeah, you should know these terms. Subject who is the doer of the action, who performs an action, right? Then there is an object which is on whom the action is performed, on whom the action is performed. Now understand guys, when we talk about, voice, this is what we learn, right? When we talk about active and passive voice, this is what we learn, right? So whether it is in verb is in active state or whether the verb is in passive state, this is what we learn in this chapter. So obviously you have understood the types. Active voice means sentence has a subject which plays upon its verb, right? Which is the major one, performs the action. Whenever you will see subject is performing the action, it's called active voice. Subject performs the action. Please remember that, when we use sentences in active voice, they are more direct sentences, right? They are more clear. So if I say, she wrote a letter, as an example, if I give you, she wrote a letter, she is the subject and this is the verb, this is the action she is doing. It's pretty clear and straightforward. Passive in certain articles, probably novels, there are certain usages of passive voice. We use it in certain cases. I will tell you the cases where to use passive and why do we use it even. But it means that subject is a recipient. In passive voice, always the focus is on object, right? So focus is on object. We say, we in a sentence, we show that subject is the receiver of the action, right? Subject is the receiver of the action. Understand the difference. Receiver. Here, subject is performing the action. Here, subject is receiver of the action. The voice is passive. We always use be plus the verb's third form whenever it is passive. This is the structure we are going to study today. But the only difference is when you show that in a sentence subject is doing an action, performing an action, we say active. But whenever we show that, subject is the receiver of the action, then we say the voice is passive. For example, here, a letter was written by her, right? Here the focus is not at all on the doer of the action. Instead, the focus emphasizing point is letter. Okay, what was written? Letter, right? So this is the major difference between active and passive voice. Now, where to use passive voice or why do we use passive voice? Another very important question. Yeah, we do study this in grammar, but probably many of you will have this question. Why do we even use it? Right? So there are certain cases in which we use passive voice. That is why we are required to convert. I know direct is very straightforward. Direct and straightforward voice is the active voice. But why are we required to convert it? Because in certain cases, it becomes important. When you don't even know about the subject, how can you write in passive form? So I'll give you examples also here, right? For example, the first case, when the subject is less important, when you don't have to mention the subject or when it is not so important, you use the passive form. Okay, right? So in normal cases, obviously we say that, okay, subject is performing the action. We mention the subject, we mention the verb, we mention the object on whom the action is performed. But here, when the agent is less important, right? Agent means receiver of the action is less important, right? We say, sorry, okay. So I'll give you an example of this. For example, now the person who has performed the action is less important. That is why we use passive. Let's see this here. The hotel has been renovated. If I write this sentence, who has renovated the hotel? Are we mentioning that? No. The agent, the subject isn't important here. So we used passive form, right? First is the object, then verb, and then your subject is not even mentioned. Agent is unknown. Now, when you don't know who did the action, right? So you will say we can use passive. We don't have any subject to mention. We don't even know who did the action. For example, my purse was stolen last week. Who stole my purse? I don't know. The subject is unknown. So I have written it in passive voice. Next, when you know the obvious answer that who is the subject, you don't have to mention it, right? So, like for example, if I say the thief was arrested yesterday. Now, it is so obvious that the thief was arrested means by the police. You know the obvious agent subject. It is not necessary to mention it. You already know. And okay, even if you have not mentioned, it is pretty clear. So you will not definitely mention it, something which is obvious. Then we use passive form. Next way to use passive, you will usually see in probably novels, right? Develop a topic, right? So once you have mentioned a theme, a topic, for example, the lecture was very interesting. Okay. Now I'm continuing with the same theme. I am adding on to this point. It was taken by Mrs. Harshita. Now you know that I have already mentioned a subject line. Now I'm adding on to it. I'm adding more information. I'm developing a topic. So I've used the passive form. Right? So there are reasons why we use passive. There are reasons why you see this structure in probably a lot of sentences in books, in articles. Why passive is used. This is the whole logic of English grammar passive sentences. It's used when these are the obvious cases. It's used in these of the obvious cases, right? So when the agent is not known, when you don't know who has performed the action, when you know that it is very obvious that this is the subject, you don't have to mention it, just to develop a topic as well. Clear? Right. Now the certain rules we follow. Let's look into that. Basic steps when we convert active to passive voice. First, whenever you get a sentence, identify these three. Subject, what is the object of the sentence? And third one, what is the main verb? Try to identify these three. This is the first step when we are doing, right? Second step is swap the subject with the object. I'll show you with example. So where you put the subject in the sentence, right? Just swap it. When you swap it, object will come first, right? Object will come first, then the verb, then the subject, right? So in passive, if for example, if you're writing the sentence in passive, how will it be? You will mention the object, the verb, and then of course by and plus subject. So swap these two, right? In passive, you will find the object first, right? Third step which you have to follow is convert the main verb in third. Very, very important, guys. Always, if you see a passive sentence, how will you identify? It's the third form of the verb we use in passive. All passive forms, we always use V3. Now, helping verb, according to tense, we put helping verb. If it is singular, right, according to tense, or I would say according to subject. Both we have to take in consideration. Singular subject requires a singular helping verb. And what is the tense? Is it present, past, future? So based on that, we put our correct helping verb, right? So fifth one, preposition by is used. For example, if passive sentence is there, by is always added in the passive voice. So 5 steps, which is basic steps when you start converting. We'll show in detail. I'll show it to you in detail how it is converted. But these are the basics. First, see a sentence, figure out what is the subject, what is the object, what is the main verb. Second, switch object and subject. Third, always use third form of verb. Fourth, helping verb based on the tense of the sentence and the subject. Fifth, in the passive voice, always you will see be, why, by, like to show who has done the action. Now, let's go one by one and check each of these cases with lots of examples so it is easy for you. First, I will start with simple tenses. Okay, so simple present tense. The structure is first you do know that S is for subject. Because it is simple present, we use the first form of verb and then we put the object. Clear? This is the first thing. Now, when we change it into passive, right, you can see because it is simple present, these are the helping verbs we use. Now, you will choose a helping verb according to subject. Is for singular subject, right? Am with I and are for plural subject. Then we have always V3. If it is passive voice, it is understood. In all the cases, we will use only the third form of the verb. This is the basic rule, right? So please understand where even in all the tenses, this will not change. Any tense you use, this will not change. Okay, let's look at a few examples to just make things clear for you. I'll write a very simple one here. He, now see and learn how you convert. He writes a letter, right? Active voice sentence in simple present tense. Now see how will you convert this one. First, here, this subject, you have to swap the two. Yeah, you have to swap the two. So what will come here? A letter, right? Agent is doer of the action. So doer is here is he. A letter. Now, again, verb. How will you decide this? Verb. This is letter. This is the object. Object will come first, right? You can also, now it becomes, when it is passive voice, it becomes a major subject. So basically, here it was an object. Here it will be placed first. A letter. Simple tense, present tense, so is singular, right? A letter is singular, is third form. What is the third form of write? It is written by. Now please change your pronoun very carefully. He, but object case of pronoun, we are using the word of pronoun in object place. So what will you write here? Not he. We will say a letter is written by him. A letter is written by him. Again, I'll repeat for you. We'll put the object first, which is a letter. We will use helping verb according to letter, right, which is singular. Write, written, third form is written by him. He becomes him. Clear? Let's do for simple past where verb second form is written, right? So if I use a very simple one, they sold the furniture, right? How will you change it into passive? Try it. First, you will write the furniture. We swap it. Now, was a verb. Obviously, furniture, singular. So, was, helping verb. Sold, third form is again sold. Sell, sold, sold. Furniture was sold by, they will become them. In object case, in object place, they will become them. So furniture was sold by them. Similarly, for future tense, simple future. Okay, let's begin. Swati will write a poem. Let us change it into passive voice. This is simple future. Will and first form you all know. In tense we have learned that this is simple future. Now we have to change it into passive voice. So first thing, what will you write? A poem will be is added, right? In simple future. Write is there. You know the third form, written by Swati, right? Simple one. So guys, simple things, what you have to remember, I'll just give you a quick recap. Whenever you're changing any tense, V3 is used, verb third form in passive always. Second thing you have to remember, swap the subject and the object. Swap the subject with the object with the subject, right? Next, what you have to remember is pronoun change, very careful. So here, why he became him in the first example? Because you're writing it at the object place. They becomes them, right? I hope you all know that. She becomes her, right? So these changes. Clear? Now you will be given examples, but still you should be very, very, very quick and accurate with this conversion. Let's check the next tense, which is continuous tense. Present continuous and past continuous. Let's check with examples. Now, you already know that when it is continuous tense, we use ing form. So, you should also know when in passive voice, for continuous tense particularly, we use being, which is being, right? And you see here, I've used both of my continuous tense. In passive, we have used being, plus this form doesn't change. It is the same V3. Okay. Now remember this present continuous example. He is singing a song. Right? Now, if I have to change it, how will I change it into passive voice? First thing which you will write here is, you will swap subject and object. So here first thing you will write is a song, right? Is it present or past? It is present continuous and it is singular. So just choose accordingly. Is, obviously singular, song singular, is mentioned. It is, right? Now we have to use being. It is there in the pattern you can see here. Is being. Third form, what is the third form of the verb? Sing, sang, I think you remember, sung, S-U-N-G. Sung by, he becomes him, right? So third form sung, he becomes him, and this is because a song is singular. Clear? Similarly, past continuous, she was washing clothes. Remember, because it is continuous, being is added, right? I will just mention here, continuous tense, any continuous tense, right? In passive, always notice which word? Being, very important, plus V3. Being plus V3. Now what will be the change here? Clothes, because clothes plural, which verb you will select out of was or were? Being. Third form of wash is washed by her. So she becomes her, right? Not very tough. Now, if you notice, guys, one thing I will let you know by, of course, in the later part of the video here. Can you see a past continuous and present continuous is what I have mentioned. Future continuous is missing, right? It's missing. Why? Because we do not use the future continuous form in passive voice, right? So this is your continuous. Next, let's talk about the perfect tenses, right? How do you convert perfect tense statements into passive form? Okay. So we have present perfect, which we use has, have plus V3. Now you see, notice one thing. For continuous, we use being. For all perfect tenses, we use B double E and B plus V3. Been, V3. So basically, for all your perfect tenses in passive voice, please add been plus third form of verb, right? Let's see present perfect example. John has completed the work. Next, how will you change it into passive? Obviously, the work, we swap the subject and the verb object. So the work will come first. Verb will be singular according to verb. So has. Then we use been. Third form is again completed only. So has been completed, V3 completed by John. Guys, not very tough. Just keep the major pointers in mind. Let's see one more for past perfect. We had won the game, right? So here, you know, one means third form is used, had, because it's past perfect. How will you change this into passive? The game had been, third form is one only, WON1, by us. We becomes us in passive form, right? So we is changed into us. Next one, he will have, future perfect. He will have, third form, received the letter, right? How will I change it? The letter will have been received, third form is received only, verb third form, by, he becomes him. Pronoun changes. In object case, he becomes him. So just understand, also there should be no confusion between will and shall, because both are acceptable. So here, majorly now, if I talk about present day English, we use which one? Will more often, right? So don't worry about that difference. Just remember what I've written here. Perfect means been form which we have used. Now, you would have noticed something. There are certain tenses while conversion we did not even add those. Which were those? So you did notice. First is future continuous, future perfect continuous, present perfect continuous, past perfect continuous. All of these four types will not be converted, are not used, right, when converting from active to passive voice. Just remember, I'll put a cross here. These four types we don't use while conversion from active to passive voice. Extremely important, right? So sometimes you might be given a question in the option, you will get no change, right? So just remember this. Let's try a few questions. See, be clear, right? How much we know, how much we are clear about our logics, our rules, which we just now did. Guys, you would have noticed it is important that we have good tense knowledge before we even do this chapter. So that is why I've covered tense earlier. Sentence is imaginary problems had been created by him. Usually the elimination you should do through this, right? Had been is used. Now, subject and the object place is changed, right? No change is made in the tense of the subject, obviously. In the passive form, you have seen the structure, how we follow it, right? So here, which is the correct option? Had is mentioned. Perfect form. This is perfect tense, definitely. So you know in passive it becomes had been. Here in the question they are saying you choose either active passive. Means they will give you either active, change into passive. Or they may give you passive sentence, change it into active. Right? So here it is had been, which means in had would have been used plus third form. Created, creating will be wrong. Past perfect, you will not change the tense, right? So he had created imaginary problems for himself. Option C. Now see how the others I cancelled. Has is wrong, creating is wrong. So these two options cancel. The correct one is perfect tense. So this is the correct structure. Had, which changed into had been in the passive voice, right? This is passive, which we have in the question, and we changed it into active. He had created, verb third form is used, imaginary problems for himself. Not very tough. हेलो, हाँ भैया कहाँ पे हैं? हाँ अभी कहाँ पे हैं आप? बेकरी बिल्डिंग दिख रहा है? हाँ फर्स्ट फ्लोर आ जाइए. फर्स्ट फ्लोर सेकंड हाउस. Let's look at the other example. I am acquiring new skills. First thing which probably you should notice according to me is tense, because it makes a question easy. We can change it according to the rules then, right? So here is am, are plus V3 will be used, right? I am acquiring new skills. Continuous form is being used. Continuous means we want being, right? So, which is the correct answer? Obviously, skills is plural. So, you need plural helping verb. Definitely, you can cancel is, right? You will not use were. It is not past continuous. It is not past continuous. It is present continuous, right? And you can't, you of course use third form, but you can't skip being, which is very important. We add in passive, we add being if it is a continuous tense. Just looking at this ing means continuous. You should get the hint that in passive we will add being. So if being is missing here, this is cancelled. Option A is your answer, right? For any continuous tense, when we change it into passive, what is always added is being, correct? Next question. The project had been being completed by him for a year. Sentence is in passive, very clear. It is in passive. Being, it is in passive voice, right? Now let's see the structure, okay? The project is the object, right? Him is the subject. This is the object. Him is the subject here, right? So which means this is in passive and we have to convert it into active. He had been completing the project for a year. Guys, please understand. Now, this might be a little tricky one to convert it into active voice. Subject is used plus had been plus third form, right? This is past perfect continuous tense, right? This is past perfect continuous tense. Sorry. Okay. So I would like to leave this question. So in editing, just remove this question. Sorry. Okay. Let's look at our next question. This is it. The investment partners are finalizing a deal. So check the first tense. Are finalizing means present continuous tense, right? Here we have to change it into passive voice. How will you write it in passive? Whenever there is continuous, we usually add being. So a deal, because deal is singular and it is present continuous, guys. You can't change it into past. And it is in which form? Continuous. So being is missing here. This is cancelled, right? A deal is being finalized by the investment partners. When you have mentioned the subject in the options, if there is a subject, you will mention it. So C will be your correct answer choice. Not very tough, but you have to be thorough with certain rules, right? Okay, let's see one last question. Let's see one last question. It seems lengthy, but use elimination and it will be easy for you then. India has seen many versions. So has is used, which you can understand is present perfect tense, right? Now when we change perfect tenses into passive, which word is added? It's always B-double-E-N, been, right? So many versions of the sons of the soil. Argument. Now because there are many versions, which will you use? Have, plural, not has. So it will not be has been, it will not be had been, it will be have been, right? Have been seen by India over decades. Have been seen by over the decade India. This part is wrong. Over the decade India makes no contextual sense. So your answer you got very easily is B. See here, have been, because many we are talking plural, plus third form seen, right? By India over decades. Without changing meaning, just follow the rules simply. This was your active and passive voice. Hope